humans and Apis mellifera coexist in Can humans and Apis mellifera coexist in the modern world? So we know that we're dependent on honeybees, but how dependent are we? Well, insects are responsible for 30% of all pollination done in the world. And of that 30%, 80% of all flowering plants are pollinated by these bees. Bees are also very essential to our modern commercial sector. 90% of commercial crops in North America rely on honeybee pollination. Honeybees alone generate $15 billion in revenue a year for North America. California almonds require pollination from at least 60% of North American honeybee colonies in North America. And California produces 80% of the almonds on the global market. So if we lose our honeybees, we lose our almonds and up to 90% of commercial crops in North America. Due to decline, the price to rent honeybees for pollination has been more than tripled in the last 20 years. So what's causing this decline in honeybees? Well, contributors to the honeybee decline include an increased use of pesticides, deforestation and loss of habitat, which in turn leads to less food available for foraging, and colony collapse disorder, or CCD. In the year of 2019, commercial beekeepers in the U.S. lost 44% of their beehives in 2019 due to these factors. So let's go into a little more what's causing this decline. Neonics. Neonics are the most popular pesticide on the market. The way it works is trace chemicals that are sprayed on the plant are absorbed and they stay present in the pollen. Trace residues of these pesticides have been found in the soil 6 years after their application. When the bees harvest this pollen, they become toxic. Interestingly enough, it impairs the bees' short and long-term memory, meaning they aren't able to survive and adapt like a regular bee could. Another very harmful chemical to bees is glyphosate, which is contained in many household products such as Roundup. Roundup was found in 90% of the food products tested by the U.S. government. It's very prevalent. Interestingly enough, exposure to glyphosate isn't directly harmful to the bees themselves. However, this glyphosate does kill the bees' gut bacteria, causing havoc on the bees' internal microbiome. This leads to weakened immune systems, making them more susceptible to pathogens and other diseases. It causes developmental problems, especially when they're exposed at a younger stage in life, and also affects the bees' behaviors drastically, so they can't forage very effectively. And we have, obviously, loss of habitat. Here you can see in this chart, the population in North America has risen about 50 million people every 20 years, while the population of bee colonies has been lowered about 1 or 2 million every 50 years. As more humans come into this world, we need more food for them, and that's just becoming more and more difficult to do with less and less bees. So we have to ask the question, can we save our bees? And if we can't save our bees, can we replace these bees? Well, people have already thought of this. Farmers in China suffering from rapid honeybee loss have employed human pollinators since the 90s. These places in China have already lost their honeybees, and they were desperate to find new ways to pollinate. And tech firms are actually attempting to develop artificial bees to use as robots in the event that we might need to replace these bees. However, with human laborers, it might work in China for a little bit, as the cost of labor is relatively small compared to the U.S. But in wealthier nations, where the cost of labor is much higher, methods like this are just simply not practical, and most farmers won't be able to afford it. And it goes without saying that human pollinators just aren't as effective as honeybees in pollinating different flowers and plants. And with robots, there's a lot of the same problems. They're expensive. They require a lot of technology and people to develop that technology, and they require a lot of rare earth elements that are hard to find. If we wanted bee robots to work, we would have to employ a lot of them, and this would just be a lot of money. Pollination services would likely be privatized, which would favor corporate farms over small farmers, giving them a huge advantage. And finally, you have to ask yourself, is it even practical that we use these robots to So we have a third option. What if we designed our cities to be a little friendlier to our bees, while still meeting the needs of our humans? Well, Singapore has actually, well, in countries like Singapore, we can see efforts like this already underway. A lot of the city planners building buildings around the idea of sustainability rather than practicality. So maybe in the future, if these are implemented on a wider scale, we can see a world like this that is a little friendlier to our bees. In conclusion, there's no simple solution to honeybee decline. It's happening, and it's happening fast. Bee populations will only continue to decline unless drastic changes are made to their environment that benefit them and their abilities. If these issues aren't addressed before we lose the honeybees, humanity won't be able to feed its growing population, and that is an issue that we will not be able to rectify until